think that the most powerful work that you can do as a starting place is around your nervous system. The person that is going to be the most empowered in any room is the one that is the most regulated in their nervous system and also the most aware. When you are regulated and aware, you're not reacting to your life and to the circumstances around you or people pleasing or otherwise. You're truly empowered. To take that a step further, the person that's the most regulated and aware is also going to be the most receptive to pleasure and to deeply fulfilling intimacy as well. So, I mean, that's just like a prerequisite. Like you can't be in pleasure if you're in like fight, flight, or like, just responding to your environment from a dysregulated space.
Yo, 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 lovers. Welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We're the O'Neills. You're here with Meg and Jacob.
And this is the place we have really uncensored conversations about sex, intimacy, and relationships. We're super excited you're here. Enjoy this episode. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. I have the beautiful Leola with me today. Hello, my love.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Hello to the listeners. I am so excited to be here.
I am so excited for this conversation. I always love starting conversations with guests around like how I found you. And
Great.
I don't even actually know. I think someone shared your work or you were shared in some way in someone else that I followed. I can't even remember who. But you have such a fucking presence. And I love, especially when, in this kind of conscious space, spiritual space, I love when women can take other people into the darkness and into the shadow. But I'm very drawn to women that also hold such a strong frequency of joy and aliveness and radiance. And
Yeah.
I just felt that from just the moment I came across your work. And I can feel that you take humans very fucking deep into their body, into their life.
Yeah.
And yet you then bring them out of that back into joy, back into radiance, back into aliveness. And I can just feel, I can just feel that in the way you move in the world and the way the way you exist in your body. So I was just automatically drawn to you. You're just like effervescent, I think is the word. And I can already just feel that in our conversation so far, but that's so palpable in how you show up online. So yeah, I just like felt your work immediately and was like, I want to be in conversation with this woman.
Sweet. It's such a generous reflection. Thank you so, so, so much. And I feel that part of that joy and pleasure and like the depth to which I experience life is possible because of going to those places like the shadows and the darkness and mastering my dark feminine. And maybe we'll talk about that, maybe not. But yeah, thank you for that reflection. It's really sweet.
Let's begin there because I think that's a really important piece. And I really resonate with that. That's been my journey. I was like such a good girl, high achiever, didn't let myself feel certain things. And then when I came into the spiritual space, it was very much like Abraham Hicks, shoulders up, high vibes only, like that kind of vibe for years.
Yeah.
And it was really descending into the depth of my body, the depth of my feminine that cracked open more of my joy, more of my aliveness, more of everything. So I would love to hear like your journey with that and what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my truth that when we like having a fully operating aspect of receiving or reception happens when we're not just receiving the things that we think that we want or the things that are beautiful or the romantic qualities of humanity. Receiving happens on a deep level and it expands. Our ability to receive the joy, the pleasure, the goodness expands when we're also able to receive the pain and the agony and the grief and the sadness and the anxiety. The more that we numb ourselves to those feelings that we might judge or dislike or be resistant to, the more we're also numbing out our potential for pleasure. So yeah, for me, I grew up in the Midwest in Missouri. And when I first discovered like self-growth or self-development, it was very much similar to what you said. It was like meditation and yoga and affirmations, and all of those things were great and supportive for me on my journey. But there was just this block, and it wasn't until I went deeper, I went like literally descended into my pussy, that things started to click and to make sense. And that's why I really love tantra and shamanic sexuality, because these are two modalities that I find are truly holistic, in that we allow ourselves to explore, you know, like all aspects of humanity, including sexuality. And in fact, both of these modalities recognize that there's a spiritual world and there's a physical world, and there's an energy that connects those two worlds. And that energy is sexual, it's procreative, it's life force. Like, we are all here literally because two people decided to have sex. Every person on earth, every animal, every plant is here because of some sort of procreative energetic exchange. I mean, the clothes that we wear, like the food that we eat, I mean, just looking around in any room that you find yourself in, everything that you see, or if you're even outside, everything that you see was either directly created by some sort of procreative life force sexual exchange, or it was created by someone or something that was created by this energy. So this energy of sexuality, of life force, these parts of our humanity that we've probably been taught not to talk about, or to fear, or to shame, are actually literally the fabric of our existence. So if we can heal our relationship to that, we can heal our whole life. Our whole life can change, and we can go beyond healing. We can go into expansion and like conscious creation. Like, this is the energy that creates everything. So what would happen if you mastered it? What type of co-creator with the universe could you become from that place?
I want to circle back, because both of us use this kind of terminology around like descending into our body and descending into pussy. And I would love for you to describe, like, for a woman listening to that, that's like, what the fuck does that mean? Or like, how do I do that? Tell us. And this can be your experience of that, or how you, if a woman comes into your world and she's ready to descend into her pussy, like what does that journey look like?
Yeah, another way I like to put it is treating your body like a mystery school. I think, again, a lot of these modalities are inviting us to like transcend the human experience, but our souls chose the human experience for a reason. Our souls chose these delicious, voluptuous, feminine bodies for a reason. There is magic in your pussy, in your body. And so to me, it's a remembrance of that. It's a remembrance of the body as a temple, as a sacred space. And this looks different, you know, from woman to woman. I think a lot of women resonate with this reality that we've been invited into more of our masculine. We've been praised or found that being in a more masculine energy is what's going to get us further for whatever reason. And in reality, sure, for a while, but it's also not how we're really meant to move. And so to me, a lot of what this work has been around reclaiming the full range of my femininity, and especially the dark feminine, which maybe now we should talk more about, like, what does that even mean? Because I think that's intricately related to like descending into your pussy, or really just like descending into your body in general.
Excuse me. Yeah, take us on a journey of what the dark feminine means for you, and how what word am I looking for? How she is like I was gonna say added value, but that doesn't feel true. How she's like amplified your life, and what she's brought to your life since, like, reclaiming her, discovering her, building a relationship with her.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, people say divine feminine all the time. Like, they throw around like, oh, the divine feminine. And I think when people say divine feminine, what they're thinking about is the light feminine. However, the divine feminine is actually the integration of the light feminine and the dark feminine. It's when she masters both the light and the dark that she really steps into her queen energy. She steps into her full sovereignty, right? There's just as much godliness and magic and power in a positive, like, energy, or in a way that can like there's just as much love in the dark as there is in the light, is basically what I'm trying to say. Like, it's in the darkness of the womb that the like sperm meets the egg and then like eventually becomes a human. It's in the dark of the soil that the seed sprouts and, you know, becomes a flower or fruit. It's in the dark of the chrysalis that the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, right? So, however, many of us have been taught to fear, demonize, misunderstand the dark because it's dark, it's unknown, it's like such a mystery. And there is so much power there. And I also feel that we'll get into like what is the dark feminine in a moment, but I feel that there's so much power there that it was a threat to the powers that be. And, you know, the dark feminine was demonized and forced underground. But yeah. So what is the dark feminine? What is the light feminine? So the light feminine is generally the qualities of the feminine that have been celebrated and accepted over the past 1,000, 2,000 years. She's the mother. She's the maiden. She's a nurturing. She's a lover girl. She's like supportive. She's go with the flow, people pleaser. And so you can see like what there's also shadow in the light too. So maybe we'll get to that in a minute, but just anchoring in the light feminine. Then there's the dark feminine, and the dark feminine are the qualities of the feminine that I have seen have been demonized, feared, and suppressed by the feminine over the past, you know, few thousand years. And the three main qualities of the dark feminine are: one, her sensuality. She's a seductress, but in a way that she's seducing the world into a greater good. She's seducing her man into his heart. She's seducing her sisters into being their full radiant self. It's from this place of overflow and not from manipulation, but she is fully embodied in her sensuality. The second quality of the dark feminine is emotional alchemy. So many women have been like told or learned, my emotions mean I'm crazy. I've got to like shut it down, like repress. We've been taught that our emotions are too chaotic, and there is a shadow side to the emotional expression of the dark feminine. But when she's fully mastered and integrated, this is where we turn, you know, our pain into purpose. This is where our mess becomes our message. This is where we make art out of the most challenging emotions that we're experiencing. I think like one of the best examples of emotional alchemy in the dark feminine and how it can be really powerful and impactful would be Beyonce. Like Beyonce's Lemonade album is like about her being cheated on, but it's like so iconic and it resonates with so many women. And it's such like a ballad of power. So that's the second one. And then the third one is her oracular abilities, her intuition. And, you know, for thousands of years, we've burned witches at the stake. We've made people that are like hearing voices or seeing things that aren't there out to be nut jobs, when in reality, like she's deeply connected to the earth and to her higher self, and has the capability to heal herself and heal others and vision a new humanity that's more equitable for all. And so those are the theory qualities of the dark feminine. And again, each of them for different reasons have been demonized, or we've learned to fear them. And I'm not going to pretend that there isn't a lot of like power, and where there's power, there's potential for danger in the dark feminine, but we don't create safety around our sexuality or our emotions or our intuition by continuing to abandon them, tone them down, shut them down, pretend they're not there. We create that safety via mastery. And so that's a big part of my work and what I'm passionate about. And I'll just say one last thing on this, because I know that I just did like a whole TED.
No, I love it.
But I just want to highlight that it's not the dark that's bad or wrong or unhealed. It's the shadow, and there's shadow in the dark, and there's also shadow in the light. Like the shadow of the light feminine, I would say, is a really big problem right now on our planet, because we have women that are consistently martyring themselves. We have women that are consistently people pleasing. We have women that are, you know, naive and not fully sovereign and responsible for themselves. And those are all shadows of the light feminine. Excuse me.
I love that nuance of bringing in like the light, the dark, and then the shadow, and talking about, yeah, the light doesn't just mean it's like always pretty and always good. There's shadow of that, which can be really painful for a woman, but also really painful for the people around her too. If she's people pleasing,
Yeah.
if she's constantly pushing herself aside, like the resentment that gets built up in her body, just thinking about in partnership, if a woman's like constantly just people pleasing and like, never
Yeah.
bringing her desires forth. Um,
And it's
I
also not
also,
good for her relationship or her man either.
no, not at all.
Like he needs you as the oracle, he needs that too. And if he doesn't see that, then that's his problem, not yours.
Mm. And I've seen this in my own journey, and I see this in so many of the women that come into my world, that when a woman hasn't yet like descended into her body and descended into those, dark feminine qualities and parts of herself, they're going to come out in really like shady, slimy ways, like the manipulation, and it's going to be dressed as the light feminine, like, look at me, I don't care, all these things, but underneath that is the current of this like shadowy dark feminine that, is trying to manipulate and like, bring all these other pieces in, or using her sexuality or sensuality in a very transactional way instead of a very embodied, like conscious way.
Yep. All those things are so true. Spot on.
Mm. I know, even as you spoke about those three qualities of the dark feminine, again, we spoke about like descending into the body or descending into pussy before. And I'm like, those three qualities of the dark feminine are only available to a woman when she is in her body. Like the doorway to those qualities and awakening them in her life and in herself is through the doorway of the body.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little to, and this can be, your own journey with this, or how you walk a woman through this if she's wanting to access the dark feminine within her or descend into her body? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think that the most powerful work that you can do as a starting place is around your nervous system. So the person that is going to be the most empowered in any room is the one that is the most regulated in their nervous system and also the most aware. When you are regulated and aware, you're not reacting to your life and to the circumstances around you, or people pleasing or otherwise. You're truly empowered. And then to take that a step further, the person that's the most regulated and aware is also going to be the most receptive to pleasure and to deeply fulfilling intimacy as well. So, I mean, that's just like a prerequisite. Like you can't be in pleasure if you're in like fight, flight, or like, just responding to your environment from a dysregulated space. So to me, the starting place for this work is really beginning to understand your nervous system and to build your capacity for like your zone of tolerance basically in your nervous system, like becoming a more resilient woman to the world around you by tracking like what's actually going on in my body, what works for me to get grounded, what works for me to be really present. And then you start to notice like, even like the more that you sit within yourself and begin to notice like the little openings and the little closings that happen with certain individuals. Like a great like story or example is earlier on in my tantric journey, I went to work with this couple and they did this tantric bodywork session on me. And they commented on how tense my stomach was during the session. They're like, you're like flexing your muscles. It's almost as if you're walking around all day, like guarded, like flexing your muscles and protecting yourself. And that was such an aha moment for me that I started to track, oh, my body is my mystery school. My body is telling me something in each of these moments. And so a week later, I was hanging out with a friend and I started to talk to her about this tantric path that I'm on. And I noticed my stomach get all tense and like my heart rate start to go up. My nervous system is activated. And I realized, oh my God, my body is bracing itself for this reaction. I'm expecting her to judge me for talking about Tantra, to reject me, to abandon me, etc. And it was this realization of, oh, how much power am I giving away to this person? How much power am I giving away to this moment? And like, what am I choosing to believe about myself in my relationship to Tantra and sexuality? And how am I projecting that onto another person? So what happens when you're really conscious of your nervous system and you're treating your body as a mystery school is you notice all of these little micro shifts that happen throughout the day and you use them as information. And that information is what's empowering you to grow and expand and take radical responsibility for your life. And then ideally become a conscious creator. And this life is I call this life a co-creation with the universe, because we're in this delightful space where so much is in our control and also a lot is not in our control. But we can choose how we react to the circumstances of life and the co-creations that the universe puts in our path. And to me, that's where a lot of the juiciness is.
I love that so much. I want to like deepen on tantra for a little bit, because I think there's like so many misconceptions around what that really means and what like that path is. So I would love to hear, I think when a lot of people just hear tantra, they think of like the taboo in sex, which it can be. But I would love to hear you speak on just like what that path really is and you know, your experience of that path.
Yeah, absolutely. So sex is really just a tool in the toolbox of Tantra, and it's one way to explore life force energy or eros or kundalini. Tantra is a really misunderstood modality and can be quite confusing because there are so many different lineages of Tantra. So there's classical Tantra, there's Neo Tantra, which Neo Tantra is probably what most people think about when they hear Tantra. It's the more Western sexualized expression of Tantra. But there's also Egyptian evidence, like there's like Egyptian Tantra, there's Taoist Tantra, there's evidence of Tantra in Christianity. There are so many different lineages. And even within classical Tantra, which originates in East Asia, just within classical Tantra, there's over 50 different sects of, or like types of like lineages just from classical Tantra. And those range from very monastic, white tantric, monk style expression all the way to like, we're going to create a potion made out of blood and semen and you're going to drink it and then we're going to have an orgy. Like there's quite a wide range, even within classical Tantra. So I like to look at the word itself. So Tantra is a Sanskrit word. Sanskrit is an ancient language from East Asia in which many spiritual and religious texts were written. And Tantra is actually two Sanskrit concepts put together. So Tan means to expand and Tra means to liberate. So basically, Tantra is this modality that's meant for expansion and liberation. And what I love about that definition is that it's so broad. It's so broad. What is expansive and liberating to me is going to be quite different than what is expansive and liberating to you and to each of the listeners. And on top of that, what's expansive and liberating to me in this season of life is very different than what it was like even a year ago, or especially 5 years ago. So to me, Tantra is this modality that's inviting us into self-awareness and calibration to say there is no right, wrong, good, or bad for any individual person or collectively. It's what is getting me closer to expansion and liberation. And in one season that looks one way and in another season that looks another way. So a lot of my work is around supporting people and finding what is your path? Like what is your North Star? How can we get you closer to that? And as far as the sexualization goes, I personally, like some people really like get all up in arms about this is not sexual and why are we all sexualizing Tantra? I get it. And I do feel that this is a part of our humanity that needs a lot of eyeballs on it and a lot of support with. So to me, it's not so much a problem. And I also know that when you can, again, work with your sexuality and heal it, which is one of the most vulnerable and charged topics today, if you can like master that, it's going to change your whole life. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I adore that. And I think you spoke kind of into this at the beginning, but I did my tantric studies with Layla Martin, and I remember right at the beginning of the training, she really expressed in a very simple form, like tantra is really about finding God and goddess like everywhere and anywhere.
So
And
true.
coming out of that, like Abraham Hicks, I've got to stay like high vibe all the time. That was so game changing for me, because I was like, oh, like even in the depth of my jealousy, or like in the depth of the part of me that wants to manipulate, or in, you know, these darker parts of myself that I have like disconnected, disassociated from, completely like, you know, run away from. Oh, like God is there, goddess is there. And yeah, I really feel that that was just such a point of transformation in my entire life. And yeah, just being able to then open, like you spoke about, like liberate. There is such liberation when we go towards the places that we've been told not to go.
Yep.
And I think
Absolutely.
I agree with the sexuality part. It's like that's a huge part of our culture has been demonizing, especially with women demonizing sex. So it's like that's actually a place where just like so much power exists for us, like so much power.
Absolutely. I totally agree. You know, it's really easy to see God in the lotus flower, but can you see God in the mud that the lotus flower grew from? Like that's one of my favorite analogies around this work is like finding God in the places that you were told not to look, that you would never expect to look. Like there's so much magic there. Another, you know, topic that I really like to talk about is the three things that we're growing up, we're told not to talk about. It's like money, sex, and religion. Like those are the three things that you shouldn't talk about. They're taboo. But those money, sex, and religion are all three incredible generators of power, right? So it's like, why are we shutting down or avoiding these topics that could potentially empower us if we had more information around or we allowed ourselves to communicate with others about? So, yeah.
What came to me just then is like I grew up as a teenager being the type of, you know, young woman that anytime someone spoke about sex, my face would just go so red and I would be so embarrassed. And then I didn't want anyone to see that my face was red. And I would just like, even like I lost my virginity when I was close to 18 and some of my friends had lost it a lot before that. So they're all talking about sex. I would just leave conversations because I was like, I just can't. I just held so much shame and my shame was so embodied through my red face and just like holding that embarrassment.
Yep.
And so, you know, I held that for a long time. And then when I kind of got into this work, I was actually so fucking surprised at how at home I felt in my sexuality. And how even though this thing that felt so scary and taboo, then when I built my own relationship with my pussy and my own relationship with my own sexuality, how I felt more like me than ever before. And I hold a lot of pleasure ceremonies for women online, and I'm sure you do lots of things in your work that women are like, oh, like the thought of that. Like if I'm in a space and, you know, this is happening, I can't imagine, like, I just think that I'm going to feel really like, you know, tense or contracted or whatever it might be. And at the end of all my pleasure ceremonies, if someone has come for the first time, the main response I get is, I can't believe how like at home I felt in my body. I can't believe how normal that experience felt. And I just think I bring that because I just feel like it is sometimes when our culture teaches us so much to demonize that part of us, we're so scared of it, but truly it's just a part of ourselves. And when we can build a relationship with that part of ourselves, like even our pussy space, like I think if someone even used that word in front of me like 6 or 7 years ago, I would have been like, "Gah," and like, you know, so disconnected and so so disconnected from that part of me. But yeah, I think even just taking I just feel like that realm of life for many women can feel really scary, but I love just teaching it from a place of like, this is a part of you and this is a part of your body. This is a relationship you're building with yourself.
Yeah, and it's a direct connection to God as well.
Right?
Like,
Yes, beyond
if you want
that.
to find God in your body and then help other people find God in their body. Yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of people, in my opinion, have sexual trauma and don't even know it. They're carrying the sexual shame and the sexual trauma, and they don't like they think that it's like normal. They think that it's like totally like, of course I'm going to get red when someone talks about sexuality, but
Uh-huh.
I like to call this collective sexual trauma, because
Mm.
you don't need to like have a very clear instance in your history where you can say, yep, that was the time that I was sexually assaulted or raped or otherwise, and that's where my sexual trauma comes from.
Mm.
No, the way that we are approaching like traditional sexual education and societal conditioning around sexuality alone is inherently traumatizing.
Mm.
And that's a big part of why I wrote my book, Sacred Sex Ed, was to like illuminate this reality, that this fear-based sexual education, this shame that we're inheriting is creating so much shadow. And it's my belief that these shadows paired with the misinformation, that we're given is like the leading cause of sexual assault, as well as those moments where like we have those early sexual experiences and maybe later sexual experiences where it just doesn't feel good. And we leave it being like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. I don't know what to do with that. Let me just pretend that it didn't happen. And it's like, oh, it's so gunky. It's so gunky. And I'm so passionate about clearing out the gunk and supporting people to find tools that are actually expansive and liberating in relationship to their intimacy and sexuality.
Yes, I love that. This is something that my husband and I have been talking about a lot lately, because we had a baby last year. He's 10 months old now. Yeah. And we're talking a lot about like already we laugh because like even before now, we're still, say dirty things to each other in front of our child, like all these different things. And we're like, when's the point going to come where like that's no longer appropriate? And then also like, where's the line of like, I feel like we are so welcoming of that part of us. I'm like, I feel like our practice will be in like creating boundaries and like creating some kind of appropriateness around that. But that feels like such an edge for me as a parent now, and being like, oh, how am I going to teach my children about sexuality? And like it really excites me to have such a consciousness around that and know what a responsibility that is as well. And obviously they're going to get messaging from a lot of other places, but like how are we going to hold sexuality in our home where it's safe and obviously, appropriate in some way and has boundaries, but also it's a part of our children's lives that they, are feeling like they get to build a relationship with their own body in that way. Yeah. And I don't know the answer to that yet, but I'm like, I'm so curious about what kind of conversations that'll look like and how we're going to hold that in our home.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about it. I do feel that this generation, like we're trailblazers when it comes to sexual education for children and teens. I have had a lot of people say about my book, like, I can't wait to share this with my son or my daughter or whatever, but I don't have kids yet, but it is something that I'm thinking, okay, when I get to that place, what am I going to do? Like, what are the resources? Right. And I'm in a similar place where like, I've got sex books all over my house and there's naked photos of me. And it's like, okay, what? I have no idea, how we're going to move through that. My husband jokes. He's like, my husband and I are both very sexual. We met at one of my tantra events. And we just talk about like, what's our kid gonna be like? Like, are they gonna be like embarrassed by the sexual stuff, or like, are they gonna be prude, like or like, are they gonna be just wild like a slut? Like, I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting to see what type of kid we create, what type of kid you create.
Truly, my husband and I talk about this all the time because like naturally teenagers rebel. So I'm like, are they going to rebel and be like, I don't want anything to do with this. I am a prude. Yes. Don't talk to me about this. This is so gross. Like, So I'm excited for that like season of parenting and to see what that looks like. And to have like a consciousness around it and to, just to know, to see how we meet those conversations in those moments.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're going to do so much better than our parents. I mean, my parents' sexual education strategy was to scare the shit out of me, just to scare the shit out of me, in terms of what, and I know that's not everyone's circumstance. I think that there were a lot of parents that were probably raising children at the same time that I was growing up and did a decent job, if not an amazing job. But it's true that even if you have the most loving, amazing, sexually advanced, aware, pleasure-based sexual education from your parents, there's still the peers, like peers are not, are like, you know, one of my most traumatic early sexual experiences was actually just like another kid that didn't know what they were doing. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting thing. Like you can't entirely escape this societal conditioning. It's in the media. There are going to be individuals that you connect with sexually in those early experiences that aren't going to know what they're doing. So it's just kind of inevitable, and we just do our best with our kiddos, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something just came up to me for me, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this, because you spoke about like sex in the media, and when I watch movies and TV shows and how they depict sex, that kind of makes me like internally rage, because it's like just so not reality, especially for a female body. And even like I love the show Outlander. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, and I find it a very sexy show. But like they're fucking within like 5 seconds. And I'm like, that might be the reality sometimes, but in my experience and for majority of the women I work with, that's maybe like 0.05% of the time. You know?
Yeah. The conditions have to be perfect.
Right? Yeah. And there's probably a lot of lead up, you know, like foreplay before that, and energetic foreplay and all of these pieces. And so I think, I don't know, I just think the way sex is shown in, you know, the media is just such a disservice for both men and women, like heterosexual men and women, because it doesn't honor what it takes for a woman to be open and ready and turned on. And then it's like such misinformation for a man.
It so is. I resonate with you completely. Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that, because I'm like, if a movie is trying to depict, you know, true, real, authentic sex, it would probably take the whole movie 90 minutes to like show the preparation and a woman's body opening. And I get it in terms of the practicalities, but
yeah, I mean, even just like showing like a little bit of like touching, you know, licking before goes a long way. And I know that they now have more intimacy coordinators, like people that come in, but I haven't really noticed a difference, to be like I think I can't even think of a single show or movie right now that I'm like, oh, that's realistic. I'm sure that there are, but I literally can't think of a single one.
I don't think I've seen, or if I have seen it, I can't remember it. But yeah, I think majority of
it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And then obviously of porn, which is like even worse, generally speaking. So
yeah, again, this is just like reiterating the importance of this kind of like education, or seeking education outside of just like popular culture around sex.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women come to this place too where they think that there's like, oh, like I have low libido, or like my pussy is broken because it's not wet and like coming 1,000 times from like internal stimulation only. Like I'm like, you're not broken, babe. Like you've fallen prey to false advertising, just like most of the world. Like it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I feel that so deeply, that like the brokenness a woman is left feeling after consuming all of that kind of content, or just like all the messaging around sex and what she sees, you know, like, oh, I'm not ready to be penetrated within 5 seconds of being with my man, but he's ready. His cock is hard and he's ready. Like that must mean, I don't have a libido, all these different things. And it's like, no, your body is incredibly different. I think that is the most, one of just like the most, and it was for me in my journey. And I love teaching like pleasure anatomy, because I just think it's so fucking potent for a woman to understand the differences her body holds, and like the instrument that is her body, and how different that instrument is to her male partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Speaking of male partners, I want to kind of like shift gears a little here. This is something I'm super passionate about teaching and talking about, and just like holding in my own marriage and in my own life. And I know you're passionate and really practice and embody this as well, is really this art of loving men, and this consciousness and intentionality around like pouring into our men. And before I got on this, I was just checking out some of your posts, and I want to check my notes because it was so beautiful what you wrote. There was a post you did and you said, be his priestess, not his coach. Yeah. And I'm so fucking obsessed with that. And I would love you to speak into what you really mean by that, and what the difference, what it looks like to be his coach and what it looks like to be his priestess.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, this is like the secret to deeply fulfilling intimacy and love in a heteronormative relationship, to be his priestess, not his coach. Um, this idea of being his coach or being his mother or martyring ourselves, like these are all qualities that we've talked about already on this podcast. They're all shadows of the light feminine, right? That's like a lot of the time it's this energy of I don't trust you, so I need to control you, or I need to mother you, or I know better, or on the martyr end, like it's like, okay, well, let me sacrifice myself and allow you to rise. But he can't really rise to his fullest with a martyr. Like he needs a powerful woman by his side. He needs you to be a priestess, right? And so this is something that I see happen over and over again. And I want to just really acknowledge that if you're like, ooh, am I like, is this me? I've done it a lot. I still do it. I catch myself doing it all the freaking time. Yep. And I think that it's a byproduct of a couple of things. One, we have been taught to fear these elements of the dark feminine. Like to me, to really be in your priestess power, you need to master the dark feminine. So we've abandoned those parts of ourselves, right? And then on top of it, we're, in this post new age feminism movement. And like, here's the deal. I also have a post where I talk about I'm a feminist and you should be too. And here's why, and how I believe that we're stepping into a new wave of feminism that isn't coming from this energy of like, women can do everything that men can do and we're like the best and whatever, like all of that, whether it's true or not is fine. But to me, we're stepping into this new wave of feminism that is about being feminine, right? And reclaiming the dark feminine and the light feminine. But I think that one of the byproducts of this new age wave of feminism that we've been in / our past, maybe still, I don't know, I think everyone's different, but one of the byproducts was this energy of like, women are better. Like there was this undertone of like, women are better. Women know more. The world is in the state it is because men are bad and wrong. And like, I don't even want to fight about that, but men have also been victims of the way things have been too. Right. And so it's just not helpful, but I just want to normalize like, hey, it's okay if this is you. It's okay if you see yourself in this. And I believe that, we're not to be blamed or shamed for the conditioning we receive, but we are responsible for potentially making a change. And making these changes are the types of things that are going to actually give you what you really want in the long run, which is probably a deeply fulfilling relationship. It's not that you're sabotaging the relationship because you don't care. If anything, like it might be you're caring too much or like putting your care in the wrong places. So yeah, it's time to stop being in this energy of like, I've got to fix everything. I've got to fix him. I've got to coach him into this path. I've got to make sure he's all good. And it's really redirecting the energy back inwardly. And in that way, it's like another analogy that I like to use sometimes is like seeing it as like the feminine is like us, like when she's in her most radiant, she's spiraling inwards, like the and the masculine is more of the penetrative, action oriented one. So there's really this invitation when you're being the priestess to just like, like be in that space of like radiating outwards. Stop shape shifting, stop trying to become the perfect woman for him. And instead, like, how can you be a greater embodiment of your higher self? How can you alchemize your emotions in a more powerful, grounded way? How can, like, instead of trying to fix because you're in this emotional reaction, what if you were instead like, how can I make art out of this? How can I be curious about how this applies to the bigger vision of my life and for the vision of the relationship as well. I just kind of shared a lot. I could keep going, but
no, I love that. I'm very similar. Like I spent, like I said, I've been with my husband for 11 years, and probably the first 5, maybe even 6 years, I was just deep in coach mode, and I was deep in like, I know better than you. Like, come along, let me hold your hand and I'll show you the way. Especially because I was like on the spiritual path, and he wasn't. And I see this in
Yep.
so many women, right? It's almost like, you've got to come and do the things that I do exactly like I do, right? And I back in the day, it would be like, I wanted him to come. I wanted his life to look exactly like mine. That's what I thought it should. And I was like, come and do yoga, come and do this. Your spiritual path has to look like this. I know better. I know better. I know better. And I was never saying I know better, but that was felt through my behavior and how I moved in the relationship and how I met him. And, that is not an inspiring place for a man to rise from. That's not an inspiring energy for him to, be in. And I often think, so often this is just such a subtle undertone of how a woman is meeting her partner. Again, it's not as if she might not verbally, outwardly be saying, I don't trust you. But when he's driving in the car, she's going, oh, you should have turned right. Or like, can't you see the park over there? Or like, are you sure you're going to wear that? Or like, there's just all these tiny little micro moments of the relationship, which is really what he's hearing is, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. You can't make a decision. I know better than you. I know better than you. I know better than you. And I think this just like constantly just chips away at a man. And then a lot of the time these women, and I was one of them, then are left being like, why aren't you in your power? Why aren't you this? And it's like, oh, we're part of the environment. It was such a big aha moment for me around like, oh, I'm part of the environment of my man's becoming. And I'm not that it's my responsibility who he is in the world, but I'm a part of that. I'm a really integral, important part of that. And my journey with this, a lot of the time was like learning how to bite my tongue. I'm all like, women reconnecting with their voice and using their voice and being in full expression. But I actually think a lot of the time for women on this path of like learning how to love their man really well and be the priestess, it's biting our tongues in moments where, just an example I'll bring is my husband wears like just crazy shit sometimes. No shit, just like stuff that's just like, what is that outfit? And I used to, back in the day, like question that, like, are you sure you're going to wear that? Or maybe even more subtle, like, oh, are you dressed yet? Even though I knew he was dressed and we were leaving, but it was like a little undertone of like, are you sure you're going to wear that? That's ugly as fuck. Or like, you should, that's not appropriate or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I just learned so deeply to like, oh, I could have an opinion or a preference of I would prefer you to wear something different, but he's a fucking grown-ass man. Like he gets to wear whatever the fuck he wants. And my practice is to be with the tension in my body of, oh, but I want him to wear the jeans or I want him to wear the button-up shirt. And that was just like so profound for me. And I really teach this practice in women. It's like, instead of almost like getting him to change, it's like, what if your job was to be with the tension in your body of not getting your preference for how he's behaving or how he's looking?
Yeah, I think that that's such a big piece, the biting the tongue piece. And then there's also a piece too, where when it is something that really matters and you're like, I'm going to die on this hill, it's how you do it. Like instead of telling him this is what we're going to do, or you need to change or whatever it is, instead sharing from this like more emotional, heart-centered place, what you see possible for him and for the relationship, rather than saying you need to do this. It's like speaking from a place of like vision, oracle, desire, not micromanaging, but thinking about like why does it matter to you? Like in the example of like the clothing, it's like, ooh, like, like it's not go change. It's like, oh, I would love to show up and be like coordinated. Like, how do you feel about that? Just getting curious and seeing like if there's space, rather than being bossy, being like, ooh, this is my desire. And that's way more interesting for a man than bossing him around.
Yes. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I was actually speaking with a friend the other day around how initiatory a man's no can be, and how back in the day, if my man would have said, like, if I would have brought the clothes thing and he would have said, I'm good in, like, I love that, but I'm actually good in what I'm wearing, there would have been part of me that wanted to like manipulate him into changing that response. And learning how to be with my husband's no has just been so initiatory for me, and the part of me that wants to stay in control and the part of me that wants to get my way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I see this in a lot of women. I want a powerful man. I want a masculine man. And yet they're not prepared to really be with what comes with that, which is respecting his no and releasing control and not always getting your preferences met. And this, I really love that you brought the desire piece. This isn't about pushing down desires or what's important to you. Oh my God, this is bringing that and being witnessed in that. But I think there's a real piece, and I would love to hear your thoughts and your experience on this, but really being able to, honor our man's no and see all the places where we want to, like, almost like the tantrumy maiden that wants to get her way and wants to manipulate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a really important piece is like, are you being a princess or are you being a queen? And do you want, if you want a king, then what type of woman is the match for that? Like you get to be the match for the king that you desire. And the more that you can be in your empowered, sovereign queen, and the queen isn't just trying to get what she wants. Like I think when people think of queen, they're like, oh, I'm all high and mighty, I get what I want. But really the queen is looking out for what's in the greatest good for all, right? And so when you think about it, like, is it in the greatest good for all to have this like tiny, somewhat frivolous desire met? Or like that, like those are the hills that you want to die on, is like when you really think that it's for the greatest good for all. And then it's getting curious about, well, how do I frame that in a way that's speaking to the vision and the possibility, rather than trying to be the queen that's bossing around my king? Like, no, we are teammates, we are partners in this kingdom. To me, the relationship between the king and the queen, it's about seeing that this relationship is in service to the greater good, just like the king and queen are in service to their kingdom, right? And so it's thinking about, okay, like how do I get to be in this relationship and with my partner to really speak to it from that? Like we are, like the reason why the king and the queens wear the crowns is because it's representative of their crown chakra and their connection to God, their connection to something greater. So it's like a good checkpoint is like, am I in my like God energy right now with this request or this desire? Or am I princess trying to control or manipulate because I want a certain thing a certain way and I'm a little princess? Which there's like, that's fine too. Like I'm all about the princess vibe here and there, but you want to be conscious of what dynamic you're creating in your relationship when you're being, manipulative like that.
Yes. Yeah. The consciousness around that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you open to sharing an example of maybe where this has shown up in your relationship, when you have a desire and it's, like you said, a hill you want to die on, and how you've practiced like bringing that from a place of like your queendom and from that place of like vision that you spoke about, instead of that like you need a change, but like casting the vision and really using that oracular nature of the feminine?
Yeah, let me think here. There's definitely so many. Um hmm The one that's coming up was, so my husband got into like comedy recently, or like in the last year or so. Yeah, he's really funny. He's such a good performer,
That's so
etc.,
cool.
etc. And actually, do I want to do that one or no, yeah, we'll go with that one. So I just started to have like another idea come forth, but we'll stick with the OG. So trust what came through first. So yeah, so he's doing these comedy skits. He's sharing with me all of his jokes and things like that. And he made this one joke that, like, to me, it wasn't really funny. And it also was like, it was really political and it was kind of like mean to like a particular group of people. And I was like, I don't like this joke at all. Like, I really didn't like it. Like, to the point that I was like, if he says this joke in the like venue, I'm going to be embarrassed, which men, I also think that there's this, a whole other conversation that we could have around letting men be men, I had a really great, actually, this my husband works with and has been in this man Jordan Bowditch. He's been in his men's work containers. Jordan also guest teaches in one of my programs. I've guest taught in his programs. He's just an amazing collaborator. He's my neighbor. He's a great friend and an incredible man in this community. But we talked all about how like men need to like shit talk to each other. Like it's a part of, just like for women to like gossip, like there is a a biological and a evolutionary reason why we gossip as women. And the same is true for men and like shit talking each other. So anyways, this joke though, I was just like, oh, I really would rather he not make this joke. It was very cringe for me. It was very, very cringe for me. And so I could like my first reaction was to be like, you can't make that joke. Like, there's no way you can make that joke. It's going to be so embarrassing for me. It's going to be, bleh. And instead of being in that energy, I thought, first of all, that's my piece. Like, I get to be with the discomfort of what that joke is and what that makes me out. Like, what meaning am I making that to the people that might project like that's her husband, and like, does she believe that too, or whatever? So I get to sit with that discomfort. That's part of my piece. And the other piece was to be in this energy of like, can I call him into his heart? Can I call him into this energy of like really thinking about the people in the room and thinking about me and thinking about, hey, like, I just want to, like, you tell the joke, you say what you need to say. Personally, I think you've got all these other jokes that are actually like way funnier. If it was funny, that would be one thing. But for me, it's not super funny. And it also is hurtful. And like, let's talk about like how this is going to land for people. And then maybe you can make a decision. And so we had this back and forth conversation about it. He took it in and he ended up being like, you know what? You're right. It's not the greatest joke. Let me go with something else. So it's this, instead of just reacting, like slowing it down, being in the energy of compassion and grace and like love and curiosity. And, you know, that doesn't always work. Sometimes he's still going to make the joke because it's important to him, or whatever the circumstance is, he might still go forth with his original plan. But that's an example.
I thank you for bringing that. I love that. And I feel like my husband and I run this podcast together. So often it's just him and I talking. And I feel like examples, what I hear from the people that listen is just like hearing real life examples is just so game changing for people in a relational, you know, in the relational kind of realm.
Yeah.
But what I love about that example too is when you said, you know, this is what's arising for me. This is what I want you to hear, but then you make the decision. It wasn't as if you were like, you can't make this joke. You were still, you know, treating him like a grown-ass man and an adult, right? And I think this is the piece that, again, can be so subtle, or some women don't even realize they're doing, is the control piece and the piece around. And I feel like it's often an unwillingness to feel what's alive in their body. You know, it's almost like I want to avoid so deeply the cringe and the embarrassment of being there. So I need you to not tell that joke so I don't have to feel that thing. Right. Yeah. And I think this is just such a powerful example, because it's like, I'm going to speak into what's alive for me. And, you know, you do with that what you need to do with that. And I think that piece around the oracular gifts of the feminine, again, it doesn't come from control, and it's not, I'm bringing this vision and you must follow it. It's like, this is, you know, I'm going to offer this into the space, and then you make the decision from there. And I just think, that's such an important piece.
Yeah. Totally agree.
There was something before that I wanted to circle back to, but I don't know if I remember now. No, I can't quite remember. This has been such a fucking epic conversation. Is there anything else that's alive for you, or you like really want to speak into or kind of add to the conversation before we kind of move towards closing?
I mean, I think it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate the time in this space. Thank you so much to the listeners for opening yourself up to this sacred and sexy and potentially edgy conversation. I think that's it.
Amazing. Where can humans find you? And we didn't really speak into this at the beginning, but can you tell the listeners about, you know, the best ways to work with you and really what you stand for in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, my book is a great place to start. It's called Sacred Sex Ed. You can find it on Amazon. Just search Sacred Sex Ed. It ships to almost all the countries in the world. And it's a sex education that is honest, empowering, and pleasure-based. It's probably sex education that you didn't have, but that we all desperately need. It's not like diagrams of genital anatomy. It's not like a Kama Sutra with different positions. It's about how to create really deeply fulfilling intimacy with yourself and with others. So that's a really great place to start. And in this season in life, what I'm most passionate about is supporting women to reclaim their, sacred leadership and their sensuality, and to step into becoming a pleasure priestess in the world. That's the name of my year-long initiation for women on the tantric path. So if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, you can find all the ways to work with me at my website, talktantratome.com. But yeah, and then my Instagram is also at talktantratome.
Amazing. I just want to add, are you open to one more question?
Sure.
I love that you just brought in the leadership piece, and I would just love to hear, and you can take this wherever you want to take it and take as long or as short as you need to. How do you feel, and this can be in your own journey or just the women you work with, how do you feel a woman descending into the depth of her feminine, descending into her pussy, all these things that we've just spoken about, the dark feminine, how does that really influence a woman's leadership?
Yeah, I mean, insanely so. Again, because this is where so much of our power is. And so if you're not fully claiming these parts of yourself, then you haven't fully claimed your power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's my truth that once you find God in your own body, then you have the ability to support other people in doing that. And that's how we create a more sovereign, empowered world. To me, that's how you seduce the world into a greater good, right? So to me, you can't be fully empowered unless you go on that journey.
Love that so much. Okay, thank you, my love. This has been an epic freaking conversation. It's so beautiful to have you here.